George Blows His Top is the second segment of the second episode of the ninth season of Arthur. Needless to say, this one focuses on George. I think George is a very complex character. Every time he's the centre of attention in an episode, I feel like we peel back another layer on the character. And in this particular episode, we learn that he's a bit of a pushover and doesn't know how to say no. Because Buster, not really realising what he was doing, kind of keeps forcing George to let him borrow his things. He kind of takes George's jacket without asking, which seems kind of malicious, but Buster just thought, hey, let's swap clothes for the day. That's a cool, fun thing that we can do as friends. But George loves his jacket. Buster's jumper was full of sticky lollipops, so it wasn't really the same experience for George. Buster wanted the last slice of Boston cream pie that was already on George's tray. Buster manages, without any real effort, to convince George to let him have the last slice of Boston cream pie, and George becomes really quite frustrated at this because he doesn't know how to say no. He doesn't know how to tell Buster that he's not comfortable with these kinds of things. And Buster doesn't realise what he is doing. He's not doing these things on purpose. He doesn't realise how George feels. And Buster has to find out about this in a very interesting way. And I actually think it was very clever. Will I say what it is? Okay, so spoilers from now. I'm going to explain what happened in the episode. George got this new tape recorder, and he was just playing around with it, practicing speaking into it, and he happens to voice how he feels about what Buster is doing to him, and he's recorded this on the cassette, and then Buster comes along on his bike and says, hey, cool tape recorder, can I borrow it sometime? And George, defeated, just says, take it. And Buster does take it, and when Buster gets home, he obviously listens to the tape that George had been recording, and he hears the message where George is saying how he feels and how he's struggling with this situation. And I think that was a really clever way of Buster finding out about it. Not just because it was, it meant that George could share his feelings without confrontation, but it means that anybody in a similar situation can maybe do the same thing. Not necessarily with a recorded message, but maybe through a written message, where you have time to think about your feelings without having that moment of confrontation. Because that is George's problem. He doesn't like confrontation. He can't say no. Clearly, he's not going to be able to express how he feels to Buster's face. And Buster, to his credit, is so lovely about it, and he's exemplary. That is exactly how a person should behave in Buster's situation. So I think it has a lot of really important lessons. Definitely provides food for thought, depending on which side of the coin you're on, whether you're a George or a Buster. I think it's definitely something that's relatable in one way or another. And I think it's really beautifully told. Definitely a really solid episode.